The Davy Crockett, one of the great Liberty ships of World War II, made its final port of call along the banks of the Columbia River in the Pacific Northwest. A private group's efforts involved removal of specific sections of the ship, resulting in a catastrophic event. Original construction methods, coupled with an inherent weakness in design, caused a structural failure within the ship. The Davy Crockett had buckled, and now was resting on the bottom of the Columbia River. Her forward hull was compromised and sank onto the river bottom. The watertight stern remained afloat, yet was still hinged to the bow. Over the following days, metal fatigue became evident on the hinged portion. Constant water level and current fluctuations on the Columbia River increased the threat that the stern could separate, causing a danger to navigation, or worse, a danger to the two interstate highways immediately downstream. The situation now mandated that the stern be stabilized. Setting the stern on the river bottom would relieve the ongoing stress that would inevitably cause the ship to break apart. Ballard Diving and Salvage architects, in tandem with United States Coast Guard Salvage Engineering Response Team members, produced the plans to pump approximately 420,000 gallons of river water back into the No. 4 and No. 5 cargo holds and the aft peak ballast tank. Bulkheads between the holds were temporarily made common via openings cut to allow for a controlled sinking. It was at this time that state and federal agencies decided that the pollution threat posed by the ship was significant and the vessel would need to be completely removed from the river. With no dry docking facilities available in the area, the Unified Command agreed with Ballard Diving and Salvage that the installation of a cofferdam encasing the Davy Crockett would be required. The dam, with an impermeable membrane placed inside, would allow the deconstruction of the Crockett while containing all the oils and contaminants present within the vessel. A deflection or shear wall was placed directly upstream, effectively redirecting the strong currents expected during the project from hitting the cofferdam. Record spring runoffs proved this to be a wise decision. With the cofferdam in place, it was now time to begin the deconstruction phase. It was determined that refloating the stern within the safety of the dam would benefit the operation. In preparation for refloating the stern, a 3-foot longitudinal frame section that connected the stern and bow was removed prior to ballasting. The purpose of this removal was to ensure no movement of the bow during ballasting. Zero discharge of the contaminated water would be allowed into the river from the holds as it contained lead, bunker oil, grease, and asbestos, in addition to a variety of other hazardous materials. Water was pumped into a filtration system staged on site. First, the contaminated water was pumped into weir or water tanks. From there, a booster pump pushed the water into a series of charcoal filters, then through a sand filtration system, and finally a large clay filter removed the remaining particles. The water was then pumped into a clean water containment barge for even further stabilization in a nearby municipal water treatment plant. With the water pumped out of the stern, the Davy Crockett was once again able to float, allowing for the Ballard Diving and Salvage crews to continue cleaning internal hull compartments. 2 heavy work cranes were positioned alongside the cofferdam to lift the cut sections away from the now buoyant stern section as well as the submerged center. The cut, or pick sequence of each piece was critical in order to keep the stern section stable and safe. First, heavy machinery was removed from below decks. Then, crews began removing deck plates from the after end, moving forward to the machinery space. Bulkheads and side shells were then removed symmetrically from the port and starboard sides to maintain stability, continuing forward to the machinery space. Leaving the double bottom hull to be picked piece by piece. Each section removed from the vessel was cleaned with hot water pressure washers on a staged barge. As with all contaminated water on the project, the runoff from the pressure washers was processed by the on-site filtration system. The clean pieces were then stacked to meet the standards of the metal recycler. The bow section, with severe fractures found during inspection dives, was determined to be a candidate for underwater deconstruction and was therefore systematically removed from inside the cofferdam. With the deconstruction phase completed, the river bottom was then remediated to state and federal standards. Dredging divers processed approximately 9 million gallons of water and removed 100 cubic yards of contaminated sediment from within the containment area. Final statistics of the completed operation were impressive. Over 3.5 million pounds of steel, 38,400 gallons of bunker oil, 4,850 pounds of asbestos, and over 1 million pounds of oily debris were recovered. Equally impressive is the fact that Ballard Diving and Salvage had no lost time accidents, and no marine life was injured during the project. With the ship and containment area now clean, the removal of the cofferdam was underway. With the project complete, the Davy Crockett had become a part of Northwest history, as was the pioneer to whom it owes its name.